Now let's get into our big story now. President Muhammadu Buhari gave his mandate to the security agencies to deal decisively with all acts of banditry and criminality perpetrated in the names of herdsmen and farmers' clashes.
The president, through his media aide Garba Shehu on Friday, also assured that his administration, in conjunction with local and international partners, would work to rebuild damaged communities in the northeast. Herdsmen recently invaded Kadomo village in Adamawa State and left a scores dead and several injured.
An unpleasant day for residents of Kadomo village in Demsa local government area of Adamawa State. Their properties destroyed and their houses touched by herdsmen who had attacked their community in the past. The community leader of the village didn't know it had been marked for attack when he attended a meeting organized by security service chiefs. The meeting was meant to resolve the unending communal clashes between herdsmen and local farmers. But it was cut short when a call came in that some Fulani militia were raising Kadomo.
When we are on our way burial, when we finish the burial, from nowhere we come and had a news that these people have arrived. They are facing us. So from there we decide to run away. They continue shooting and burning houses.
The Commissioner of Police, Mohammed Ghazali, and the other security chiefs immediately mobilized their officers but were late to the scene of the attack.
Well, we were in the meeting when we were told that they just come to this village where we are now, and they've started burning down and raiding the people. So we have to move down to Demsa to come and assist them. That's what brought us to this very village now.
The police boss and the deputy governor of Adamawa State, Martins Babale, both say the meetings between the herdsmen, the farmers and the security operatives would continue until peace returns to the state.
For now, we are calling for all the communities to keep calm and wait for the outcome of the investigation.
Attacks by herdsmen have put many communities and parts of Nigeria on the edge, and residents of Kadomo village can only hope government would be able to settle disputes over grazing rights and ensure peace returns.
All right, you just heard the report of one of the latest developments in there. But joining us on Skype is a security expert, Larry Suraj. Larry, it's good to have you on TVC Breakfast right now.
Thank you.
And joining us from Abuja is also a security expert, Kabiru Adamu. We'll have him as we get along. Now, Larry, let's start with you on here. The issue of attacks by herdsmen has been on for a long period of time. At this point now, would it be right to say that the government actually does not have the will to put this thing behind everyone?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complete failure of the security network in Nigeria. It's actually an indictment on also government. Like you said, it is getting gradually to a state where you want to say, yes, the state has failed to protect the people. The state has failed to protect lives and property. And then you also want to say clearly that the security network does not have answers to challenging insecurity situation in the country. So if you look over the period of time, we've had to contend with this challenging situation.
All right, we have network challenge.
To deal with that.
Okay, we have
the
it back
level of rampage. That there's a clear failure on the.
Okay, there seem to be network issues there. Let's get to our Abuja studio where we have Kabiru Adamu standing by there. He's also a security expert. Kabiru, it's good to have you join us on TVC Breakfast. Now, let me ask you this same question. The issue of herdsmen has been on for quite some time now, and we just heard the president is deciding now to deal with the issue. But one would say that the will has not really been there to put the issue of security, Fulani herdsmen, or maybe they're not Fulani, but herdsmen behind us.
Oh, sorry, I just lost the last part of your statement. Can you come back again, please?
Yes, I am asking you, I am saying that it seems the government doesn't have enough will to put the issue of herdsmen behind us. What do you think?
Well, I wouldn't totally agree with that, right, in the sense that if you are talking of the government, all the security forces, for instance, are part of the government apparatus. I know the general media consensus has been that the president has not, demonstrated equal attention like he demonstrated to the terrorist agenda that is affecting the Northeast, for instance. However, we know that other security forces, including the military, the police, and several other departments have been taking the action. Having said that, I would like to make a little clarification. I think it is absolutely wrong to lump the phenomenon that we're seeing right now into one. From my assessment, there are three basic aspects of this herdsmen, criminality that we're facing. One of them that bothers me more than all is the banditry, the marauding herdsmen that go around killing people in different parts of the country, mainly in the northwest and the northeast of the country. In your footage, you showed what happened in Adamawa. That's the kind of marauding banditry that is really scary. The viciousness with which they carry out their attacks, the people that they kill, is quite worrisome. The other aspect is the one everybody calls cattle rustling, where they attack, incidentally, the Fulani people. They attack Fulanis, steal their cattle, and then in the process kill them. Now that's very different from the banditry that you showed earlier on. And then thirdly is the clash between the pastoralist, which is the herdsmen, and then the sedentary farmers. Now, I think it is absolutely wrong to lump all of these three together, because in doing that, in most times, the victim and the perpetrator is lumped together as one. And instead of you to get the people on the ground to support you, what you get is now resisting them, because they that are the victims, unfortunately, are now being portrayed as the perpetrators of the act.
Okay, whatever nomenclature you might use to describe exactly what is happening, it's good you'll be able to clarify it, but the truth of the matter is people are dying, and it's not just about the media saying it. This is, the fact is everywhere with us. Enugu, we've not forgotten what happens in Enugu, and now in Adamawa, and now in Kaduna State. Really, do you think, according to Mike again, do you think that the state has the willpower to put an end to whatever nomenclature you might call it?
Frankly, the state needs to do more, and one of the first things it needs to do is to clarify to us Nigerians what is happening. When you lump all of these three together, because even the state, for instance, doesn't seem to appreciate that there are different aspects to this phenomenon, and lumping them together, honestly, is not going to solve the problem. If the government keeps on talking about creating ranches or grazing reserves, it's only going to deal with one aspect of that problem. It leaves the other two unattended to. Now, deploying military operatives to go and deal with the problem, for me, it's not going to solve the problem. Yes, it could check the banditry that we're talking about, but the million-dollar question, the big question there, is the arms that are at the disposal of these bandits. Where do they get the arms? How come we are not seeing any concrete effort by the government to? I believe that several studies, several committees have been set up to investigate these aspects. It is high time the government releases the white paper of this report and tell us in terms of concrete action what effort they are making. I know the president has made a declaration over the weekend, or probably on Friday, to the effect that the security forces would deal ruthlessly with this herdsmen. But for me, that's not the issue. We need to see clear roadmap in terms of an implementation plan on how to deal with this, all of these three aspects. So to that extent, I agree with you that the government can do more. But to go to the extent in saying that the government is doing nothing, I would definitely not agree with that.
But this is not the first time the president has been making statement. He made the statement during the Enugu. I'll refer you back to the Enugu attack, where he said those people who perpetrated that act should be crushed. Yet again, they should be dealt with decisively. Perhaps the decisiveness that Nigerians want to see is what we saw in Arepo assault just last week, where there were bombardment and some of the militants were brought to their knee. Apart from intelligence gathering, maybe some prosecution is necessary now, do you think?
It's the whole gamut of activities. Like I said, we need to see a clear roadmap on how this problem will be dealt with. Various bodies, including my own, is looking at this problem as even bigger than the terrorists, or to an extent even the militancy that we're seeing. Remember that the ethnic group that is supposed to be behind, especially the banditry, cuts across the whole of West Africa. And there are already indications, based on the information available, that some foreign countries where this ethnic group is based in are involved in this activity. So if we allow this thing to deteriorate, we could see a situation where it engulfs a majority of countries in West Africa. So we need the government to come up with a roadmap, an implementation strategy to deal squarely with this problem. And like I said at the beginning, there is a need to make a distinction between the three major aspects of the herdsmen criminality, if I'll call it that. And it should start with government. Come out clearly, explain to us Nigerians what these issues are, and then differentiate between the perpetrator and the victim. It is very, very unfair, for instance, to go to a place like Zamfara, where the majority of the population are Fulani herdsmen, and then begin to use the word Fulani herdsmen are killing, or stealing from, because they are the victims in that instance. Adamawa, to an extent, is populated by Fulanis, and majority of the people are the victims. I know that there are other ethnic groups that are also the victims of this action. So we need to see a distinction. We need to see an effort by government to investigate this, make that distinction, sensitize Nigerians on this distinction, so that the general, media hype around the Fulani herdsmen is reduced. And then that way you will galvanize support for the effort you are doing. But bottom line, government needs to do more by coming out with a clear strategy for dealing with this. I know they're talking at length about the one between the pastoralist and the sedentary farmers, and that's about the creation of grazing reserves, ranches, and all that. But like I said at the beginning, that is just one aspect of the problem. The other two, they've mentioned deploying the military, they've mentioned deploying the police. Even that, I have my reservations around that. It is the mandate of the police to carry out that responsibility. Why should they wait until the president orders them before they do it? So I'm not too optimistic that I would see any clear effort on that. Bottom line is that especially the Office of the National Security Advisor, and to an extent the IG of Police, we need to see more action from these two offices in terms of a clear strategy for dealing with all of this, the three aspects of this problem. They are affecting our national security, and like I said, they could expand to the whole sub-region of West Africa, whereas there are Fulani ethnic groups in other countries apart from Nigeria. All
right, Kabira, I'm going to come back to you on this, but let me bring in Larry Suraj. We have him back on Skype now. Larry, it's good to have you back. Now, yes, Kabira just said something now. What is there a difference between the will of the security agencies or security apparatus to handle this issue different from the will of the government? Can we separate the role of security agencies like the police, the SSS in handling this issue different from what the president would have done, as the case may be?
Oh, yeah, you can, yes and no. Where you have the government actually giving an instruction and a directive or even an order that, certain situations should be brought under control, it is expected that the security apparatus, like you said, under obligation, they have a duty to deliver within a specified period of time. And that is when the will of the president comes in tandem with that of the security apparatus. But where that order is not effectively discharged by the security agencies, it behoves on the government, and that is the president, to either change the leadership of such security agencies and then also bring in competent people to do what is necessary. Unfortunately, what you have currently is misplaced priority on the part of the security agencies in the country. Take, for instance, you have the SSS. meddling in the issue of the National Assembly budget padding issues, where you have major challenges that are involving the loss of properties and lives, which is their primary responsibility of gathering intelligence, and then also bringing people responsible for this heinous act under serious control and then also the hands of the law. So failure of some of these agencies, it's a major challenge to what you have. And the president also is under obligation. Let us not lose the fact that some of them, and this is why I'm personally yet to be convinced that many of these attacks are perpetrated by just Fulani herdsmen. I mean, we've had Fulani herdsmen operating in the country ages before now. We've had reasons to live together. There was really not a time that we've had such a level of brigandage and also effrontery to bring down communities like we are having now. So if we are having this suddenly happening, then there's a need for the security agencies to actually also unravel what could be responsible for this. This was how the Boko Haram thing started. It started like a joke, and then people start taking things for granted. And then unfortunately, the citizens, we just jump into the foray of saying, oh, it is just Boko Haram. Oh, it is just a religious agenda. Oh, it is an ethnic thing. And before we knew what was happening, it metamorphosed into a terrorist cell. So we shouldn't just make that same mistake again. So we should hold the security agencies responsible for failing to discharge their primary duties and responsibilities. And then also we should hold the government also responsible for not dealing decisively with the issues. And then where there are vacuums, deal with the security agencies and hold them responsible for casualties that are suffered.
Okay, let's bring Kabiru back in here to respond to what Suraj just said. I will just try and recap the issue of misplacement of priority and lack of incompetence of some of the security agents. And I would like to take you back to the statement made by DSS during when they discovered some shallow graves in the northeast. The DSS went ahead and identified that those people killed and buried in that shallow grave belong to a particular extraction of the country without DNA test, without any forensic experiment or so to identify where those people actually are from. But the DSS went ahead and made such inflammatory statement, and the House of Representatives called them to order and stuff like that. So do you agree with what Suraj just said about misplacement of priority of some of the security agents and incompetence of some of them?
Yes, I've always been an advocate of what I would call the depoliticization of the security forces. Unfortunately, the way they are structured right now, they are tinted with a lot of politicization. Their inclination, for instance, is to listen to the body language or the indications of the presidency, if I'll call it that, and then respond accordingly. Now, in other climes, that is not what happens. They have a mandate, and the mandate is the protection of the national interest, irrespective of what, for instance, the interest of the individuals that occupy the presidency are. Over time, unfortunately, in Nigeria, we've seen that aspect playing out, increasingly, where, for instance, certain issues are left until there is a directive by someone from the presidency before they are implemented. And what worries me, in line with what my Suraj has mentioned, is the fact that even when, for instance, the presidency issues a directive that either the police or the SSS or name it carries out an action, which incidentally is already in their mandate to carry out. We don't see any punitive action taken against that department. So, for instance, when the Enugu incident happened, the unfortunate incident, my heart goes out to those who lost their lives there. We didn't see any concrete action by the government to penalize the police, whose negligence led to that. The example you gave, for instance, we didn't see any punitive action against that department, the DSS, and until we do that, clearly we're not going to see, a responsive and more proactive action by this government department. What worries me is that it is us as Nigerians that give excuses for these departments. We keep on saying that the police is corrupt. We keep on saying that the police is incompetent. So the question is, at what point will the police live up to its mandate? Yet we keep on spending money on this department. Every time we call in the military to carry out the functions of this department. And as you know, the military is stretched. Apart from that, the military is not cut out for civil operations. The more you deploy the military, the more you see the type of unfortunate incidents that we're witnessing. What is happening in Niger State, in Boso local government, even though it's, from what we know, it's not exactly the issue of herdsmen, it's a totally different issue. But to demonstrate the civil-military relationship that is at an all-time low, we need to understand that it is not every time that you deploy the military to carry out civil-military relationship. So yes, I agree with Suraj to the extent that the government needs to understand that every time a certain department fails in its responsibility, then perhaps there is a need to carry out some punitive actions against that department so that it becomes deterrence to others, and as well as it gingers other aspects of government to know that if you do not work, then there will be some form of punitive measures against you. To that extent, I would say that the government has demonstrated an appetite, unfortunately, for negligence, which going forward, I would call on especially the presidency to ensure that is either stopped or reduced.
All right, Kabiru Adamu, thank you for talking to us on TVC Breakfast. All right, we're going out on TVC Entertainment, but viewers there can continue with TVC Breakfast on TVC Nigeria, Concert Channel 190, DSTV 418.
GoTV, it is 45, and SATV 510. Let's continue the conversation there.
You're watching TVC Breakfast, and we are discussing the recent herdsmen attack in parts of the country, not just Adamawa State, now in Kaduna and other parts. Reports, those that are reported by the media, those that are not reported, but you keep hearing some of these attacks here and there, and that's what we're talking about this morning. We have with us on Skype Larry Suraj. He's a security expert, and we've been discussing this. We just finished laying off Kabiru Adamu in our Abuja studio. Now, Larry, let me come to you on this. Anytime there's attacks such as this, there are always calls for the president to do something, the president to handle this, the president to... Now, what is the role of state governments and state governors who also have a responsibility to maintain law and order within their domains? And after all, some of these, or most of these headsmen attack are carried out within the territory of a state. What is the role of state governors and governments in all of this?
Well, unfortunately, both at the state and the federal government is where you have both the failure and also the responsibility to discharge some of these basic constitutional fundamental rights of the people. The Constitution says the primary purpose of government, and that is not even only at the state level, including at the local government level, is to protect lives and properties. So it is not only the state government that we hold also responsible here. We should also talk about the local government, because they're the closest governments, also where you have CDC and the rest of that. And then also the state government, where you have votes that are misplaced, misappropriated, and in many instances misused for private and primordial purposes by the state government, are meant to have been utilized for the purpose of gathering intelligence through formal and informal means that can feed into the central system that would then assist the federal agencies in busting some of these crimes. But what you have is such a situation where the states would throw up their hands in the air and say, we are waiting for the federal government to actually come and actually deal with the issue of security. But that is not true. You have a huge retinue of security, hence the Civil Defense Corps, the road safety, the police, the SSS, manning and protecting only governors houses and government houses across all the states, but not in terms of gathering intelligence to support, the protection of lives and properties in their states. So it is not alone, like you rightly said, that you want to just wait for the federal government, especially when it has to do with lives and properties of Nigerians. But then the overall responsibility still lies at the doorstep of the federal government. The federal government controls both the police and the SSS, the military intelligence agency, the naval force, and then also the air force, and that is where we have a leadership role that is expected to be played effectively by the federal government. But unfortunately, which is very important, is about the intelligence gathering. You can't deal with these so-called herdsmen the way you deal with the militants, where you know their location and you have some of the identities. It is becoming a criminal enterprise like you have with Boko Haram, when you had multiple versions of Boko Haram. So we need to get our intelligence agencies to be on the top of their job, and that is only when it can only be brought under control.
All right, so you were talking about the state governors and the local government. Does the issue of the Chibok girls, when they were abducted, the reports were there all over the country, and the governor of the state, Borno State governor, said he was waiting for the federal government to reach out to him first before an investigation could be carried out. Just to buttress what you were talking about, but perhaps does this bring to fore the issue of state policing? If the police, for instance, were to be decentralized, will the state governors be able to act better and galvanize the security agencies at their disposal better?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's no gainsaying in the need for the state police. But I must actually also be frank and candid with this. If we run with the level of recklessness of some of the state governors, and also the application of their primary and fundamental responsibilities, and you only get them to usually look for a way out by saying, oh, it's because we don't have state police, and then you don't take proactive actions. You don't initiate strategies for which you can work even in the absence of state police, then you're not likely to have anything different. What you probably would be having would be continuous unbridled corruption on the part of the state governors, who would, in the name of equipping, setting up, and then appointing police leadership and officers, to reduce it to just the political issues that for them will be an opportunity to recruit their political persons to also gratify their political leaders, and then also turn the thing to the appointment. So when you are talking about state policing, it has to be serious business of pure policing and not politics playing. And then it wouldn't be at the whims and caprices of the state government to also repress opposition parties in the state. So I entirely agree with you that the issue of state policing will go a very long way in actually mitigating many of these crises if they are utilized and deployed for the purpose for which we are advocating for them. But if it is just left to the usual wishes of the state governors, you might have state policing compromised and then also abused to the extent that it will just be a recruitment opportunity for politicians and political supporters, to the extent that you wouldn't even have the primary purpose of that achieved. But then, like I said, without the state policing, the state governments and the local governments still have not only the resources, they still have the capacity to also walk around intelligence gathering, even when you don't have the capacity to say you want to then undertake the combatant level that is expected. But then you can feed in many of this information. And when the federal agencies fail to discharge their own duty, then people can separate it clearly from. I also listened to another version of the Chibok girls abduction, where the local government official said that they had the information, they contacted the military barracks around those areas, but they were not responding. that will tell you to the extent that there were also some measure of, I think, compromise from the top level. And that also speaks volume to how much that can also be undertaken where there's an interest beyond what you want to know. But then you have a duty to discharge it.
All right, Larry Suraj, thank you very much for talking to us on TVC Breakfast.
Always my pleasure.
Thank you for coming.